the umbrella covers everything, the umbrella. With a swing, the umbrella gets a high burning.
The umbrella returns. Television's magazine of the arts.
Previously, London's chief claim to artistic fame was Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians. Lombardo was born here, but another musical group is now clamoring for attention. They're called the Nihilist Spasm Band.
I dreamt I was living in paradise, but awoke from my dream at sunrise to discover I was still in London, Ontario. London, Ontario. I was still living there. I believe in the purity of the amateur, the unschooled genius. A great work of art was never created by a man out of breath. I want to be a famous London boy!
Playing for 30 years every week to no audience is mind-boggling to me.
The title of the CD is Every Monday Night. This is based upon the fact that we've been playing every Monday night for 35 years in London, Ontario, Canada at the Forest City Gallery. And we're still playing.
What about me? What about me? So you think the economy's bad? What about me? So you think the CN Tower is the tallest freestanding structure? What about me? So you think there are 7 wonders of the world? What about me? The sun never sets on the British Empire. It sets on me. I want to teach the world to sing my song! My song! My song!
It's very tempting to want to situate the Nihilist Spasm Band as forefathers of, or even inventors of, noise.
We were in an interview and somebody said, so you have been described as the fathers of noise music. Well, what is your relationship with punk rock? And I said, oh, we're the uncles of punk rock.
It was very early, 66, fall of 66 or early 67. And they were giving, we're going to call it a concert, at least a performance in this kind of dingy tavern, a lot of beer around, and it was really a low-grade place. And the sound was extremely loud and not particularly appealing, but exciting, and there was an enormous vibration and energy. I can't say I liked it, but I was very impressed by it.
The fellows who ran the York were good enough sports to have them in there. And I found to their amazement that the Spasm Band and all their horrible noise seemed to gather an awful lot of very interesting people. And on it went.
People came into town to check it out, which they started to do. They would come down to the York Hotel because that's where everybody would be. Well, Buckminster Fuller was brought in to lecture in London, and he gave lectures, I think 3 or 4 lectures, and it was natural that on a Monday night they brought him down here, and he came down to hear our band, and he took out his hearing aids because it was so loud.
Well, it's always been very original, right from the beginning, the kind of sound that they were after and that they made.
Je ne me souviens pas. I've forgotten. Do you remember? Vous souvenez-vous?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is our first performance in Detroit, and I would like to introduce various members of the Nihilist Spasm band. Art Crotty on Stradivarius, John Boyle on kazoo, Larry Cotwell on drums, Hugh McIntyre on bass, John Clement on guitar, Greg Turnow on kazoo, and Bill Leslie on vocals and theremin solo. This will be a symphony. It's a symphony. This is the first movement.
Greg made a movie of a cottage that we had rented. A whole bunch of us rented this cottage and went and stayed in the summer. And we called this No Haven. After he made the movie, he wanted to do a soundtrack. And so he bought a whole lot of kazoos.
This is one of the original kazoos. The only one which is left of the original kazoos.
They were bought in 1965.
Yes.
You could play it.
In the early years, they were always delighted if people got really angry and said, that's a horrible sounding noise, and left. They would always joke and say, oh, you know, we had a really good concert because everybody left and the place was empty before we finished playing.
This piece was played before, but at the time the audience was such that I don't think they were able to receive it properly.
Initially, noise was an accusation, not a label.
When we started playing, we were despised and certainly not understood. There was a great deal of hatred, I think one would say, from the audiences, and disgust, I think, would be another word that was used sometimes.
There was a whole lot of people around, and out of that grew the Spasm band. And just a bunch of people wanted to make noise together. And that's what it is. I'm not so sure it's music. Sometimes it's fantastic. When the band is on, we're one of the best bands in the world. When it's bad, it's terrible.
The key to our success was that we had no skills. In a way, we couldn't do it right, but we couldn't do it wrong either.
We were in effect making a statement with the Spasm band about order in music as well as society in general. As you know, there was no semblance of order in the music the Spasm band played. The word nihilist ought to be a dead giveaway. However, I felt it was inappropriate for us to be preaching this at the same time as holding down steady, regular, orderly jobs and living like normal, orderly people with wives and children and debt and, you know, all the other benefits of life in Canada today.
Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, Alberta, Yukon. No Canada, home of the beaver, home of the maple leaf, animals and vegetables. No Canada, home of the brave, home of the Monkey, the RCMP. No Canada, home of the snow, a cold country. Home of the restrained, the shriveled, the worried.
Well, I was asked by the National Gallery. I was a curator here at the National Gallery at that time, and I was asked to organize, it was the 1969 biennial, And I decided that we should send a Spasm band. So I understood the climate, that it was a place for avant-garde, for kind of breaking the mold, and that they would have an audience there that would discover something in Canadian art that was not traditional. Canada at that time was not really seen internationally as a hotbed of avant-garde or of great inventions. We as a country, fairly timid about exporting our values, if you want, in terms of art. It was a big deal. It was a very important French government sponsored event. And the Spasm band was given to play, it's still there, in the middle of the two wings of the Musée National d'Art Moderne and the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris. There's a pool there, in a beautiful neoclassical 1930s building, an empty pool, of course. And the Spasm band was given that to play, so they would play outside with all these marble around them, so the reverberation of sound would be terrific.
In Paris, there was a big audience. Most of them liked us, but there were a number of people who threw franc coins at us, which was apparently a great insult, which we didn't take. We thought it was money that we could use.
Well, confrontation is useful, especially when you're young. It's great fun. Yeah, helps you to define what you're doing.
This is my earplugs. This is my mic. This is my theremin.
Bill decided to start making retching noises by putting his finger down his throat and this kind of thing. And he got more and more adventurous with his finger as we went on, until he finally vomited on the microphone and on the floor, at which point the sound guy shut off all the equipment, and it was crisis time. But the rest of the band just kept playing.
On Saturday morning, 13 cyclists set out on a highway near London, Ontario. Their trip ended in tragedy. A pickup truck hit 7 of the cyclists. 6 were taken to hospital with injuries. The other, Greg Curnow, was killed.
Curnow was one of Canada's most prominent artists. His work has been shown right around the world, as well as at the National Gallery in Ottawa. Curnow did more than just paint, though. Over the years, he developed a reputation as an outspoken nationalist. Greg Curnow would have turned 56 this Thursday.
So I put down a good friend, and I sort of wonder if people, didn't mean that he was a good friend of mine, but that he was such a good person to have for a friend. He was loyal.
Greg was a man of humor, intelligence, and tolerance.
Without Greg's studio and his central position where we all met and talked about things and did things, the band wouldn't have come together.
When Greg died, we got that thing again. People came up to us at the funeral and said, "Too bad." I said, "Oh yeah, it's too bad." Too bad about the band. I said, "Too bad? What? Too bad about the band?" Well, the band's over because Greg's dead.
These are people who would never ever have played a noise band without being introduced to it by Greg.
I mean, the Spasm band is a bar band. People tend to forget that, but that's what we are, as a bar band. A noise band, but a bar band.
guess in a way it proves Greg's thesis, right? That this is supposed to be music that anybody can play, because these guys are anybody.
It became obvious that we were much more like family and brothers than friends.
We are a family that's sort of outside.
I think he intended it to be a local group, but I'm not so sure that he'd be happy about going to the States to play.
That's something that's changed, and I think nearly all of our experiences in the States so far, not all of them, but nearly all of them have been really interesting in one way.
People are very nice down there, not unlike the news on television.
Since Greg died, art's taken up the internet, and it's become an important contact thing for the band. So he's taken over that area. Boyle has found that he really likes the publicity end of it. So he's taken over that end of it, and arranging concerts and things. Hugh looks after records and in the record stores and packing them up and bringing them on the trips and that. I have less responsibility now.
Ode to Murray Pablo.
If I moved away from London, I would really miss that Monday night thing. I would miss it. It's an important part of my life. Well, just like having supper. Why is that important? I don't know. I guess because you need it. When I made these guitars, I could make them left-handed. So that was the first guitar. When I made that, that's what a dealer took interest in Toronto, and he sold it. And so he would just I would keep making instruments for the band because he sold them. I have to make a new one. And then I'd say, I need money. He'd say, got another guitar? And he'd sell it. So that's how they got collectible. He just did that, and then he kept putting the price up. The Canadian ones have the horn back there, which is a lot like the Spasm band uses, and they have a hard time finding them now. That's what I'm interested in, is creativity, how it happens. I choose not to look at art as my things to analyze. I choose to look at other areas of creativity. I had that other airplane underneath it, you see, hidden there, you can't see it. And I raised it up in my animation so it just emerges through the paper. When you look at inventions and these things that you call mechanics, then you have a sort of an example of it solid. Because if you're to look at a painting and say that's creative, sure it is, but it's an end result. You can't dissect it to look at the creativity of it, where it comes from, where it's going.
I really liked the way the sounds, they interacted with the sounds. And it was a group of men that I had never seen behave that way. We talked about real stuff, about the kind of, sometimes even about the kind of stuff that women would talk about, like their families.
I forget where I was flying to, but I was on an aircraft, and is there a doctor in the plane? Came on, and I went, and there was some young guy who'd been up too late, not had enough sleep, drunk too much booze, and fainted. And of course, I could tell that, but they didn't know whether he was dying or not. Hi, Evelyn. I've always kept this somewhat separate from that. I mean, the Spasm band's kind of in some ways an antidote to this. The Chinese have discovered that there are a number of points in the body that will impact on the way the body works, and they have a language for discussing it. They talk in terms of qi, of energy flow, of yin and yang, and the flow of energy is along the 12, well, there's actually 14 meridians, and it ebbs and flows and has its directions and its time of day and all the rest of that stuff. And by inserting needles at various points, you can release blockages in the energy flow, which they describe as the cause of pain or illness or body dysfunction. When we put the needle in Zev's ear, put one in a spot called Shenmen, which is just increasing endorphins and causing sort of a nice high. I don't think we're going to understand acupuncture anytime soon, but it's obviously the human body is a vastly complex thing, way more complex than Western reductionism would like it to be. You know, it's totally engrossing. It's like the right moment in a motorcycle race when it's all coming together and the speed disappears and the rhythm takes over.
The nihilists believe in nothing?
It'd be pretty hard to live if you believed in absolutely nothing.
Apparently in Japan there are a lot of people who want to hear the Spasm band.
Your friend's name, I don't remember.
Aya.
Aya.
Yeah.
Aya.
They were like legend in Japan because they've been playing for over 35 years, and at the time it was really hard to get their old records.
People can't believe that we would be invited to come to Japan. That has done more to make people notice us than anything else.
Nihilist Spasm バンドの皆さんですよ。すごいですよ。もうこの人たちはすごいですよ。
これは何ですか？カズーですか？ちょっとやっていただきます。
These people were sitting there, and they were all sitting so quietly. And while this quiet piano music played, and then the first group played, and it was incredibly loud. And the people still continued to sit there, and nobody laughed. Absolutely nobody laughed. And then we came on and played afterwards. And the people clapped and clapped. It was quite a surprise.
Nihilist Spasm Band from London, Canada.
すいません。
This is my room in Tokyo, the Sunroad Hotel. It's a little tiny room by standards. It's got really be quite cozy. You enter the toilet, sink.
Do we have to be this loud?
No. You want to be down a bit?
We're very loud. I have a feeling that the general reaction of the band members was not favorable toward the noise bands in Japan. We couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing, and they were so loud, and using these machines, it was sort of like standing next to the dynamo underneath the Niagara Falls, you know, and this incredible roar, deafening, painful, your chest rumbling, you know, you're wondering if you're going to have a heart attack or some kind of seizure generated by this noise. This was all new to us. We didn't know it existed at all.
Japan was incredible, hospitable, but it also was like a coming of age. It was like a, hey, you know, we can do this.
I have worn earplugs constantly with the band, ever since I began playing with it. I find this type here, a silicone ear putty, to be one of the most effective types of earplug which can be used. Some people use wax. I myself use silicone. It blocks out almost all the sound, but you can still hear it through the bones of your body, and you can enjoy it without any long-term damage or any possibility of tinnitus ringing in the ears, a very serious problem these days for noise musicians.
First time in Japan, Murray Favreau on guitar.
A number of the members of our band uses special earplugs which have been specifically fitted to their ear cavities. That is, those ones who do not already wear hearing aids.
There were 3 cats in Canada. John Boyle's cats. Cats that fought in the night.
When you're doing anything involving the lyrics, certainly the response matters a great deal. When we played in Japan, of course, that's something that we didn't have because the audience could not respond to the lyrics in the same way as, for example, an audience in Chicago or New York could, or an audience in Canada.
We've played with real musicians, excellent musicians who play free jazz, and they're never able to fit in with our band because they're musicians. They cannot escape their musicality.
I like the screws. I like the screws.
The Japanese have really created, in many senses, the noise music genre. I think that they're the ones who kind of said, hey, and you kind of belong with us, in a way. Because we were orphans when we went to Japan. I went looking to see whether there was anybody else doing anything like us. And I got over there and I discovered there's nobody. I really was astonished by that, actually. I hadn't really thought that, you know, somebody else might not have figured out the same thing. It seemed so clear.
What music have you always liked at the time?
Beethoven.
I remember Gilbert and Sullivan. You used to sing Gilbert and Sullivan.
God's Lord.
This way!
One single evening can possibly damage your hearing. One evening alone. Yes, and it can cause a problem which will never go away. You will never, for example, be able to hear the sounds of the wind blowing through the trees or the sound of a bird.
What happened really when we went to Japan was we discovered that there was somewhere else in the world that knew about us.
すごいですね。なんと言っていいのか分かりませんけど。
I am just recommending the oral prophylactic as a necessary means to further your enjoyment.
Bye-bye, John.
I forgot. Goodbye. It's been a pleasure traveling with you again.
It was a great trip, which I will remember tomorrow after I've recovered from this stupor.
When I was in Japan, I worked for Alchemy Record and I decided to study English seriously again. And I was looking for the place, and the Jojo Hiroshige, who was my boss, suggested to come to London. And it's because of the Spasm.
It doesn't have a reed, it doesn't have a membrane, and the rest is mine.
I have always built stuff. It just, what it is I'm building changes, that's all.
And I wound up working in the graphics area, an area that produced the negatives and plates and one thing and another for the paper.
The day he retired, he went into work, and you know the end of the day came, and that was his last day at work. And he said to the boys, as he referred to them at work, he said, "I've got to go now. I've got a busy life. I'm off to Japan. I got to go off and work in the band."
This thing was bowed and played for 2 or 3 years. But as the band got louder, need for volume, switched and built this. Now it has been stripped of its pickup and stripped of its strings, but it was the first solid body stringed instrument I built.
This is an odd one in the case that it's a mechanical slide on the side, button on the end that pushes the blade straight out. This is a Japanese design that I picked up in Japan. Fairly standard model over there.
It was very loud, a little cumbersome, very loud, and this came a little later. This was meant to be played up against the body this way. Your belt went through it here, held it against you, and you actually played it upright. There became a point where we were moving around a bit, and I liked something that was portable. So I got rid of the bigger instruments and started building small violin-style instruments. Then went through, in rapid succession, a whole group of instruments that sort of spiraled off this. I got a little carried away here and carved this one off to look like a snake.
They're a joy to have. They're a beautiful thing. Easy to look after. I assumed every boy was fascinated by snakes. And at some point I just decided I needed a couple.
This is just strictly go to the hardware store, buy a plastic water pipe.
These are Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and they wouldn't last any time outside, and they wouldn't last any time in here either. If a couple got out, they would not colonize the house.
There's nothing precious about these things. They're functional. They're functional objects, meant to be played, meant to take a beating.
We have to spend so much time planning for tomorrow that we can't do anything today.
This was, I believe, if I remember correctly, my first kazoo.
Quite early on, I just decided on my own that I was an artist and that what I was doing was valid, and I didn't allow negative criticism to affect me. I think the process of doing stuff, of making things with the band, is identical to the process of making art or the process of writing. I explore her body with my tongue, her downy armpits like hummingbirds' nests, her tiny breasts like exotic blooms, her throbbing nipples, her deep, soft navel, and her heaving belly. 4 soft hands enfold my body and guide my timid cock into a loving mouth, 2 mouths.
Lead Belly, the American songster, I was discovering blues and all that kind of music. Peter Kropotkin, the anarchist theorist, sort of Russian nobleman. My great friend, and everybody's great friend, Greg Kernow. And I've got him making bombs. Greg had published an article in Region magazine about how to make a bomb. This created a controversy around him at the time. And you can see it's done in 1965, which was the year that the band formed.
The popular culture that we're forced to endure is so fascinated with violence and destruction. Destruction is the easiest thing that you can do. You can smash your lights, I can smash your camera, I can smash you, you know, and that's easy, you know, but making something new is hard.
I think about the Spasm Band sort of apart from musicality.
And that one is Statue of David by Michelangelo that I bought at Kresge's store in St. Catharines. And of course it was all white. What I planned on doing was taking it home and painting it skin color. See, he has a tan line from his bikini bathing suit, and painting his pubic hair and the tip of his penis and his testicles and all that stuff. And I was going to slip it back on the shelf. The thing that interested me was that white, it was art. Painted skin color, it was pornography. Gary Michael Dalt saw this and a couple of others that I did, and he said that he thought they were disgusting. He's an art critic.
Every year we've had a nihilist picnic since 1965. And we all go and we have a picnic which is just like a Sunday school picnic back in the 19th century. We have races and we have speeches. I developed a definite nihilist picnic speech style. marked by various non sequiturs and exaggerations and so on, and they seem to be very well accepted.
There are two little flags here that haven't seen the light of day in possibly 30 years. The last time that they were actually seen, my son, who was right over there, he's over 30 now, was in a bassinet, and one of these flags was laying over top of him. It says "fuck nihilism," and my mother came past at the time and she said, you know, that's not nice to put that on the baby like that. Canada.
Canada, home of William Lyon Mackenzie, who gave his life. Home of Louis David Riel, who gave his life. My God. When Bob Mackenzie, the master of the games, says how to do it, you begin jumping like this. That's all you do.
Okay.
You simply jump. The person who stops jumping last wins.
John Clement, who is not here, holds the record for the actually jumping. Believe it or not, he jumped for a full hour.
Ready? Jump!
Up! Hey, we're off!
All right.
Where's the bag?
I'm going to stop.
Oh, he stopped.
All right.
Oh, it's so awful, and you're trying to eat, and these poor little kids are jumping up and down.
Could it be on the 35th anniversary of the first picnic, on the cusp of the millennium, that lethargy has set in, brought on by the realization that the great objectives of nihilism have already been achieved? We are governed at all levels by nihilists who believe in nothing, who destroy everything in their path, who hear, see, and speak nothing. They accurately reflect the mindset of the people who think nothing of thinking nothing. The new millennium is the millennium of nihilism, when we will want for nothing. But is it time then for the Nihilist Party to disband?
No.
No. No way. Not a chance. Nothing doing. Stuff and nonsense. The Nihilist Party must party on ad nauseum.
Wow. Is there any rebuttal?
No.
No.
My topic this year is violence and wisdom. I shall begin in a moment by reading from a great classic of Western literature. But before I do that, I would like to say a few words about my experience in getting the rope. I went to Forest City Party Rentals, where we get the rope every year, and I paid them $23. I asked the elderly lady who was there, if anyone else rents the rope, and she replied, not really. We keep it for you guys. We have been renting this rope, ladies and gentlemen, for 35 years. We have paid them in today's money $23 every year. We have paid them, ladies and gentlemen, approximately $800 for that rope. Ladies and gentlemen, violence, before any zero-tolerance policy on violence was established, it is really horrifying reading this great book. We have never sung a love song before. We're going to do a love song this evening.
He was very respected. I mean, the class, is about an hour, 60 minutes, and you wouldn't see the time go by. He would act out all the different poets or like characters from like a Shakespeare play. I don't know, it's just the way he was teaching. He was interesting.
A lot of people might not have wanted such a person teaching their children.
you know. I don't know what they...
To inculcate by precept and example
Nihilism?
the finest
No,
principles of the Judeo-Christian morality, I believe is the wording.
I don't think they would have
Yeah.
approved of nihilism.
No.
It would have been very disturbing to them.
If you're teaching something, you're teaching something about an essay to somebody, I mean, obviously the whole emphasis is on the ideas and the organization of the ideas, constructing the lessons to lead the people to draw conclusions and see how things work intellectually.
I mentioned to him actually Monday night that I knew about his band when I was in high school and that the music teacher played it, and he said yes, I was very upset with him and that he wasn't to do that. And it made me realize that he really wanted to keep that part of himself separate. He didn't want people to know.
Look at the way he stands, you know, he stands when he sings, or he's got his paper, the way he fiddles with the paper, he just, you know, puts his notes back, same thing, you know, and that's what's great about him, because he's not putting on a show, it's who he is.
Your vocal range is developing, it's becoming much more sonorous and annoying, really annoying.
He had this hedge around the front of his house, and there was this guy that took a dog every day and would walk it along, and the dog had leak on his hedge, and it was killing it. It was killing the bottom of his hedge. So he went to the electric fence place, and he got this electric fence wire and put it around the bottom of his hedge, and it was all hooked up, and he had this button he could push right by the window. There you wait. And the dog would come along and then he'd hold down the button.
He'd be severe and kind of scary sometimes, you know, I mean, yeah, so he's, I think, very extreme in that way.
He's inspiring in that way. People could think whatever they wanted, and he was a good teacher because he did his own thing.
We started out acoustic, and so the first bass was a one-string gut bucket. A very sophisticated one. I designed it myself.
Nobody's been married twice. Everybody still has exactly the same wife as they started out with, except me, who never had one at all.
All these people who sort of put themselves on stage and want to be sort of like, you know, super rock stars. There's no way they can ever attain, you know, the majesty that Hugh has on stage.
Well, Hugh was always a kind of forbidding character. He's always been big. He used to play football in high school. When he was young, he was almost menacing in his gruffness.
The high point of the week was going and playing in the band on Monday night.
People who got to know him through his library really respected him and treasured him as a librarian.
I wouldn't be living in London if it weren't for the Nihilist Spasm Band. I came here 30 years ago for 1 year, and all I knew about London at that time was a little floppy 45 I'd gotten in an Arts Canada of the Nihilist Spasm Band.
That disc was offered on eBay recently for $300 American.
Jesus Christ! Really?
Yeah.
I wonder where mine is.
Thank you.
Hi.
I liked my job, and that, at least good parts of it. There's always some bullshit in most professions and most jobs.
I ran a program for years, probably at least 10 years, of feature films.
The washrooms are right there because, you know, people get up to stuff in washrooms.
He's a bit deaf. I don't know if you've caught on to that, but he is a bit deaf, and I think a lot of times he doesn't hear people when they speak softly to him. So sometimes people they thought he was rude, but I don't think he was rude. I couldn't hear them.
The surface impression is entirely surface. He's a really terrific guy.
I always have a few things to overdo, sometimes quite a few.
It's due December 1st.
It's only the last few years that we've been the fathers of noise, because it's only in the last few years that people started talking about noise music. You know? So in the mid-70s we were proto-punk or something. We couldn't be punk because we'd been already around for over 10 years when punk came along.
I always feel nervous when I leave London because we're moving into an environment where I feel completely unaware and I have a tendency to get lost. So that's why I feel good about coming with you guys, because you know where to go.
Why don't you sing No United States?
Well, no, I can't do that. The rhythm isn't right.
No United States! Poor old Eisenhower! I hate the USA!
We found that in the Spasm Band for years. You play, for example, something on stage, you know, and you sense that the audience doesn't receive it correctly. So you try it again, you try it again. Now, we've been doing that now for 35 years. 35 years! And we're still working on it. It's an eternal activity. It goes on year after year.
But you were saying earlier in the week that all this practice we were doing was making us worse.
I do believe that it's sometimes true, but that's because if you're tired or if you're exhausted or demoralized in some way, it's extremely difficult to get things right. So take, for example, the Spasm Band here driving to the United States. There is a definite tendency for us, with all those years of accumulated revision and practice, to rest on our laurels. And when you rest on your laurels and you get lazy, you get boring. But when your laurels get large, there's a tendency to just sort of sit on them and vegetate.
This son of a gun, he played midnight with the horn. And Central Park ends at 58th Street.
There's 996,000 bottles of beer.
Nice looking building. Well, the discussion was that the last time we were in New York, we made a mistake. Some of us went scrambling around looking for restaurants and went to bad restaurants. Boyle said that he walked straight down here 4 or 5 blocks and he found a whole bunch of good restaurants. That is what we should do this time. Except Boyle's screwed off, he's lost something, he doesn't know where he's putting it. The thing with finding a place to eat and the milling and going from one place to another is if you're really hungry, stay out of the discussion, because it eliminates one voice and it makes the decision making that much faster. What you really want are 4 hungry people. They all stay out of the decision, willing to eat anything, and only 2 have to decide on the restaurant.
And I wouldn't get to call macchiato if I were.
No, that sounds mucky. Well, that's fine with me, John. Whatever you say.
The real decision making is between Boyle trying to save face because he promised us a good place to eat, and Bill, who is worried about everything. Price, whether it's too spicy or it's not too spicy, or whether he'll be able to get soup or whatever.
The Nihilist Spasm Band were around for 30 years plus, and nobody told me.
When I was playing in Osaka, I was drinking some sake. And Hugh stole it and put it away, and I couldn't drink it anymore. Destroy the nations! Destroy America! England is dead! Destroy America! France is nuts! Russia is old! Destroy America before it dies! John Clement from London, Ontario is not here, and Murray Favreau, our guitarist from London, is not here. But that's all right, because you can hear them on the CDs which you can buy in the lobby. I'm grateful to you, Mother Canada. Mother Canada, M is for the many things you have given to me. O is for the other places I don't want to be. T is for the times you've shown you're always on my side. H is for the happiness that swells my heart with pride. E is for the English, it is our official language. R is for Elizabeth Regina, our queen. C is for the cretins around us all like sand. A is for the amplifiers that you gave our band. N is for nihilism on which our band is based. A is for the anus of the world. D is for decentralization. A is for art, the only true vocation. Oh, Mother Canada, who is my father? I'm exhausted. Can't you be allowed to grow old gracefully and just forget it all?
They reminded me of a white Canadian, more atonally punk rock New York art quartet, fronted by like Sean Connery impersonating Robin Williams.
This is Bill Exley from the Nihilist Spasm Band. You're listening to WFMU 91.1 FM in East Orange. Why try? Why bother? There's no point. Forget about it. Deterioration is a fact of life.
It's not a problem for time for him, but for us. Yeah.
It's now 6, and we haven't even done a sound check.
Who's missing? Tim, Art, Bill. Bill.
The pseudo-masochist recoils in all-out consternation at real broomsticks in real play in all-out degradation.
Pretty good so far. Probably should check with the whole band.
So, do you think we're just about ready to go?
Yes, we are.
So
we are.
You mean recording?
What's the
Yeah,
plan?
we're ready to record. And
Okay.
the first plan is just to get the music part of it down, and then we'll do we'll work on the interview part of it later.
It's no use. It's all been done before. You can't do anything new. It's all downhill. Not now. Not then.
We do something that we enjoy doing, and if people like to watch us do it, that's fine. If they don't, they can screw off.
You guys have been getting played on FMU ever since you've been around, ever since your records have leaked out. There's you have a long history at this radio station.
Then the preacher glides to the vestry door and shuts it, and thinks he has seen no more. The door swings softly ajar meanwhile, and a pupil of his in the Bible class, who adores him as one without gloss or guile, sees her idol stand with a satisfied smile and reenact at the vestry glass each pulpit's gesture in deft, dumb show that had moved the congregation so.
I thought it was fantastic. I love it. I love the instruments. It's kind of an idea that I've been interested in for a long time. They listen very carefully to each other, and they play from inside out. And I found that very interesting.
All of them had other careers before this, and now this is like the retirement plan is to tour your noise band around the world.
We talked about putting together a band called the Sons of the Spasm or something like that, but we're only 10.
I know everybody and their brother's gonna be calling tomorrow.
Who are they to criticize, right? I mean, no one understands what they do.
Look at your dad. He's a weird looking guy.
Hey.
Got a big hat. He wears
that.
these shirts that don't have any collars on them, and he always wore them.
Yeah, it's always worn them.
The shirts I wear, I have very long arms. And when I got married, my wife could sew, so I started designing clothes, and she built them for me. I've been wearing shirts like this since 1965.
It's very hard to rebel against your parents, and your parents are doing. It's only once you meet friends who don't have that, who have fathers who are, lawyers or something like that, and they have this, very 9-to-5 life. You realize that yours sort of is different.
We used to have friends, and I think I still do have friends who are alienated from their parents, and our families are not like that. This is very funny in this art community, or whatever. The families are very close-knit.
It always seems like we were raised to be friends with our parents.
How long are we supposed to play on the air here tonight?
How long you want.
Okay, well. This is the Nihilist Spasm Band from London, Ontario. We're here in the studio at CKMS FM 100.3.
There is a market that would love to discover the Nihilist Spasm Band. If they want to reach that audience, they have to actually go out and play.
United Nations slow as molasses. United Nations won't kick asses. Idi Amin worse than Hitler. Patrice Lumumba worse than Hitler. Ho Chi Minh worse than Hitler. President Diem worse than Hitler. Che Guevara worse than Hitler. Fidel Castro worse than Hitler. Yasser Arafat worse than Hitler. Saddam Hussein worse than Hitler. Ayatollah Khomeini worse than Hitler. Salvador Allende worse than Hitler. Augusto Pinochet not so bad.
Listen, we cannot judge ourselves by what happens out there. We can only judge ourselves by ourselves. And if we decided we played great, we were great.
It
was pretty funny sound. Like when we do stuff like that, usually works out.
You just do what you're doing. Other people can draw conclusions about what it's like.
Remember when the children fled in terror in St. Catherine's?
Yes, I
That
do.
was a good one.
We did a children's concert in the afternoon, and the kids were all sitting up in the front seats, and they ran out crying with their hands over their ears when we started to play.
They've got a normal routine, and that's how you keep a band together.
So you say there are 7 wonders of the world? What about me?
For a festival to make any sense in London or anywhere, it needed to be responding to something that was really going on there.
It was a surprise for us to discover all these people coming, because good heavens, in the first year, the first No Music Festival, we had to turn people away.
This will be Canada's first noise festival, and it is appropriate that it should be held in the hometown of the Nihilist Spasm band, founders of the noise genre.
Redwoods and sequoias, let them stand. Dictators and potentates, let them fall.
When Ben Portis came up with the idea of doing the No Music Festival, one thing we all agreed on, the really unique thing, would be the jam sessions afterwards.
All the years of a continuous interest by them, of course, but still a certain isolation, and not that many people dug it really. To have it really appreciated is just great.
Nihilist Spasm band.
Rebuild the nations. Redesign America. England can be revived. I didn't crawl to the top of the food chain to eat salad. I'm a meat eater, a consumer of bloody protein.
Your tickets continue to be redeemable every Monday night.
Every Monday night you can come and hear us if you want. Sometimes there are a few
here. Sometimes there's nobody.
You're a wonderful audience. It's wonderful to be able to play in London, Ontario. London, Ontario.
I enjoy it now that I learned that you have to wear earplugs.
However, but I don't know why. How come? I don't know. What's that smell? What did you say? I don't understand. Although, I can't remember. What was the name of that person who had the big hat? I don't know. I think it was green. What time is it? When do we eat? Who cut the chain? Now I remember the name. That's the smell of freedom.
Some of the greatest music in the world doesn't fit into any progressive historical scheme, and Nihilist Spasm Band is a perfect example of that.
I do not like being approached by academics, let's put it that way, because academics like to argue about the importance of things. This is something that you listen to, not something you argue about.
Geez, I think they make all that noise just to crowd out all the other nonsense that's happening in the world. You just sit there and you're just surrounded by noise. You can't think about anything else.
We are the best band in the world of our type. Of course, we're probably also the only band in the world of our type.
They really were trailblazers in a certain sense.
I can see them possibly reaching the Lombardo length of service. Lombardo was probably at it for about 60 years by the end. I don't know if the Spasm Band will quite reach that far into the next millennium, but they got a shot at it. I mean, they look pretty durable. They don't expend a lot of energy on this stuff. They've contained themselves and paced themselves really well. And hey, I mean, how many bands have their best record ever after 35 years?
People have a different view of age now than they used to, but I mean, good heavens, we'll soon all be over 60 years old. All of us will be soon, and this is pretty surprising when you consider we started when we were in our 20s, you see. So I guess where we'll go is, assuming we're all still healthy, which is a big assumption, I guess we'll probably continue to play.
Well, what we really enjoy doing is playing. And I can do that as well Monday night, and maybe better Monday night, than I can do it on the road or with somebody else. You know,
I'm not going to Minneapolis in
Although
December. I'm not going to Winnipeg in January. I'm not going to Yellowknife in February. guys were threatening me with
Yellowknife?
earlier. I'm not doing that stuff.
Neither am I.
What the band needs is a period of benign neglect.
And we're now going to do our first selection of our second set here this evening. And the first one, thanks to John Boyle, we were able to locate the lyrics for Stupidity, one of our, from a 1970s album and re-released as a CD by the Records of Japan. And this is Stupidity. 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 Stupidity is disgusting, repulsive, obnoxious, cretinous, wasteful. Stupidity! Stupidity is typical, common, everywhere. Confusion is unpleasant. Uncertainty is upsetting. Getting lost is disquieting. Being hesitant is upsetting. Doubtfulness, confusion. Loneliness is gloom. Barrenness is bleak, ugliness, anxiety, desolation, sorrow, dejection, humiliation, despair, misery, depression, recession, disquieting. This is a totally, this is confusion. Stupidity is typical, violent, everywhere. Stupid,
asshole is taping us at this moment, and I don't think it's a good idea to say anything honest from the heart to this wreck. If this fucking asshole tapes us, he'll put it in some kind of a movie or something, or do it, and it'll be used to fuck us in the future.
He's a drunken asshole. He can't even hold the fucking camera steady. Like it's wiggling all over the place.
If the shit would turn off the camera, we could have a private conversation and talk about something important. Instead of having to be filmed, every fucking thing you do is filmed by this asshole.
Yeah, wait till we tell everybody back home what the drunken asshole's been up to.
I think that we're a little bit like the chaos theory in physics.
And which is?
What the hell do we know?
What's the chaos theory?
That you can't determine everything like those musicians did. That everything's determined and related and all that. That thing, you have all this stuff happening and things emerge from it. Patterns emerge.
Murray's right, though, the chaos thing. I think we're interested in how things break down rather than how they come together.
But when things break down, often...
music way.
Yeah, but sometimes when things break down, you lose confidence. And we don't. was a division. Greg was the leader as long as we weren't playing. As soon as we got on the stage, he was absolutely right. There's no leader once we hit the stage and we started to play.
And I miss Greg for many reasons, but because, as Hugh said, he played kazoo, and there were always two kazoos in the band, at least. Bill sometimes plays kazoo. And when Bill left, I didn't have another kazoo to play with.
Greg.
Or Greg left, rather. Sorry, you're still here, Bill.
Because I know what I want, and I know what I feel, but it's not here. It's at home, in Ontario, in Canada, where the grass is green, where the flowers bloom, where I'm with you, waiting for you to hold me tight in Ontario.
I've lost some of my marbles. We know that. My large marble, the one that I value most, has been lost. Does anyone see, yes, my favorite marble has been lost. Does anyone see a large marble around here? My favorite marble is gone. Have you got another one of these? I don't think anyone cares. I've got another one. John has found my marble. There it is. This marble has traveled through Asia, Europe, North America. And here it is today, refound. My marble. Listen now to the sound of the recovered marble. Next time I'll be more careful.
Bill says that he wants us to be quiet so that people can hear the lyrics because they're very important.
Yes, but we don't
so
leave
we're
them to just
quiet
Bill to
usually.
write.
He says the lyrics and then we play like him. But we sometimes interrupt him, which he doesn't like too much. But that's part of it too.
Come on!
Oh, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Nihilist Spasm Band from London, Ontario. We're going to play another original composition this evening, beginning now in a few moments. The title selection, can you all hear me? There have been a number of requests for some of our more classical compositions, but we're going to play something original this evening on this special occasion. And the title of this evening's selection is Today's Song. It's a love song. We have never sung a love song before. We're going to do a love song this evening. This evening, Thursday, May the 5th, 1983. I'm happy, 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 because I know what I want. I'm happy, 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 because I know what I want. Take me in your arms, Canada, and hold me tight and slumber. Take me there, Ontario, where I want to go. For I know what I want. And I know what I feel.
I remember talking to John Boyle after John Boyle came to play with the band on a Monday night, the first time after the death of Greg. And I said, well, how was it? I wasn't there that night, I couldn't come. And he said, it was really fun, but it wasn't as much fun as it was with Greg.
It's quite ironic, I find, that he's gone and things started to really change, yeah, for the band. You know, if he's watching what's going on, he's just totally having a blast watching what's happening.
Do it my way. My way makes sense. It's logical, isn't it? It's obvious. Don't you agree? Do things my way. It's the only way because it's the right way. I care about what you think, it's just wrong. I'm polite to everyone, even if they are rotten shits. Rotten shits are illogical. They don't do things my way, the right way, the only way, the way that makes sense. So yeah, listen up. I want things my way.
when you play, you're thinking about physics.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, you.
I'd like to introduce you all to my wife, Norma, here.
How do you do?
Who's visiting us here from London. Yes.
Yes, John, can
Everybody I know.
try a King Mint?
This is my wife, Norma.
Was
that Lorna? Lorna?
Norma.
Oh, Norma. Hi. How do you do?
Nice to meet you, Norma.
I know you.
Yeah, so good.
We played for years together.
Do you and Lorna get along well?
I know the song well.
Are you newlyweds?
No, we've been married for several years.
Yes.